Professor Kούλεϊ, thank you for being with the National Public Television here in Athens. Let me ask you, I guess you agree that things are not going as planned for Putin from the day he decided to invade Ukraine, right?
Right now, he's facing challenges on at least two fronts. One is the course of the war. He was taken aback by the unexpected counteroffensive by Ukraine, which has not only taken up territory, it's complicated this reasoning behind this annexation vote and plan, right? After having annexed these 4 Ukrainian territories, embedded them in the Russian constitution, he's now finding himself actually losing Russian Federation territory. And so this not only complicates the status of the referenda and what has happened legally, it signals a type of weakness that he doesn't have the facts on the ground to claim what he is claiming. The domestic challenge, I think, is even more significant for him. Up until now, last week, the war was something that was separate. Russian citizens were not asked to sacrifice, carry on life as normal. We will handle the sanctions. We will ensure that there are ways to get around them. You can continue to consume. Now with conscription, the mood in the Russian public, and we know this from Russian government surveys, is far tenser and worried than it was before. The war has come home. It's something real. It's affecting people that they know.
How credible you sense his nuclear threats are?
I think it's difficult to judge credibility because whether he intends to use them or not, he needs to signal that they're credible. He needs to signal that he's willing to do it. And he did it with his traditional mechanism, which is to say the US has done it before, just like it has done Kosovo recognition before, just as it has exclaimed that it is a unique power. The US has used nuclear weapons before, so there's a precedent for us to do it. In reality, it seems unclear what he would gain on the battlefield as a result of this, especially given the fact that there's such kinetic movements in the lines. It's doubtful that, for example, this would give some sort of clear military tactical advantage in a particular field, just because the two sides now are moving at such pace.
Do you think that Ukraine's bid for NATO membership is a step in the right direction, or it would possibly escalate the situation?
I think it's premature to talk about admitting Ukraine to NATO. It would add a kind of symbolism on an issue that is so fraught for both sides. I think the facts on the ground and Ukraine's military capacity is what matters now. I think Secretary Blinken is right to table the move.
And what's your prediction for the upcoming winter in Europe? Is there any chance you think that Russia and Europe will change their stance as far as it concerns the strategy around the energy resources?
I think at this point things don't look good. And they don't look good because Putin appears to be playing this card that he wants to inflict pain, economic pain, in a last bid to break European unity. So for him, this is part of a strategy. And until we actually have a concrete peace process on the ground, until we have actual negotiations where the two sides feel that it's in their interest to negotiate, such measures as sanctions, energy security, the future security architecture of Europe, these can't be discussed in any seriousness.
And what about Turkey's role in the Ukrainian conflict?
Well, Turkey has wanted to hedge and be different things to different sides. So, of course, it has supplied Ukraine militarily with the drones. It has also, however, refused to enact the sanctions. It was recently pressured over the use of Russian payment system Mir cards, but has been welcoming of oligarchs, of some of the sanctioned entities, and also it has a history of conducting certain reflagging operations. So I think, Turkey has wanted to present itself as a mediator in the conflict, right? As someone that can party that can bring the sides together, but it has wanted to play all sides as much as it can in that role.
And has it infuriated Washington, you think?
I think Washington is frustrated, of course, that a NATO country is not on board the sanctions regime. On the other hand, relations between Washington and Ankara have not been good. So I think it was also expected that the Turkish role would be one of trying to carve out an autonomous position of itself.
And final question, Alexander, how do you think China is evaluating this whole situation in Ukraine and Russia?
I think China is taking notes every day, not only at the conflict, but also the Western reaction. I think Chinese officials would have been absolutely shocked at Western unity, especially the coordination between the European Central Bank and the Treasury on blocking sanctions. Also, we see the Chinese leadership announced a ban on the deputy ministry level and above owning foreign bank accounts and properties overseas. Again, mindful of the way Russia has been sanctioned globally, trying to prevent that scenario happening in case the West wanted to sanction over something like Taiwan. But in general, I think the Chinese that were pursuing this policy of trying to divide Europe and have preferred partners are rethinking strategically some of their approaches.